Do you want to know God? A lot of people live their entire lives really wanting to know God, and they try and they work really, really hard, but they just never quite get there. Let's read in Matthew chapter 11 what Jesus says about this. He says, "All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him." Let's pause there for a moment and recognize that it is absolutely essential that Jesus reveals to us who God is, that Jesus opens up our eyes. We are blind. Ephesians chapter 2 tells us we are dead in our trespasses and sins. We have no hope of approaching God. We have no hope of knowing God, and we can work as hard as we want to. But this says that we're not going to find Him unless Jesus reveals Him to us. And that is good news because we have a Savior who wants to reveal to us who God is, who wants us to know the Father. So, if we can't work ourselves into knowing God, if we can't study enough, if we can't do anything in and of ourselves to come to know God without Jesus revealing Him to us, what are we supposed to do? Just sit back, chill, and hope that He reveals Himself to us? Well, look what He says in verse 28. He says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." What's He talking about? Are you tired? Are you weary? Are you in this pursuit of God? Have you worn yourself down in trying to reach perfection on your own? Jesus says, hey, come to me. If you're heavy laden, if you feel like this is crushing down on you and the weight of all that you're supposed to be and do is just too much, Jesus says, come to me. And what Jesus offers you is rest. Rest from the weight of the world that you've been carrying. Rest from the weight of you trying on your own to be good enough to know God. Trying on your own to be smart enough to know God. Trying on your own by yourself without Christ is crushing you, but He says He can give you rest. And then He says in verse 29, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find," again, "rest for your souls." He says this again. "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Now, Jesus is using this example of a yoke. A yoke is just the thing that goes on the shoulder of like cows or a donkey or something when it pulls a plow in a field, like a farmer plowing his field. And what Jesus is saying is the yoke of the world is heavy and burdensome. The yoke of the world is what makes us weary. The world lays all of these things on us that we have to live up to this standard. We have to meet this expectation if we are going to be good enough or if we're going to live up to the standards of everyone else. But Jesus says, hey, you'll never live up to perfection. You are weary. You are burdened. Take my yoke instead. And what He says about His yoke is it is easy and His burden is light. He's saying his yoke is not one that weighs us down and makes it more difficult for us. The yoke of Jesus is like helium in a balloon lifting us up. It's like a life preserver being thrown out into the ocean where someone is drowning. If you throw a life preserver into someone who's drowning, they're not going to say, "Get this off of me. This is extra weight. I'm trying to swim here." No. He says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." So, He says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me." Why should we do this? Why should we take His yoke? Well, it's easy and light, but also look at what He says about His heart. Jesus says, "I am gentle and lowly in heart." Jesus, the glorious Creator, made Himself low for our sakes. Jesus, rather than being harsh and being a taskmaster trying to get more out of us, Jesus is gentle and comes low to where we are. His heart is moved to lift weight up off of our shoulders. Come to Jesus and He will give you rest for your weary soul.